You're listening to Season 14 of the Virtual Tailgate, a media bullcrap production covering college football in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I'm Andrew.
I'm David.
I'm Geoff.
And I'm Jared.
Be sure to join the tailgate on Facebook at Virtual Tailgate or email us at virtualtailgate@mediabullcrap.com.
All right, everyone. Well, it's once again, as we head into this week of the Virtual Tailgate and we review last week's games, it's time for the Walking Taller, Feeling Taller Players of the Week, brought to you by none other than our favorite and most durable work boot, Tecovas work boots. Certainly something that will get you wherever you need to go and whatever your situation is. And we're going to revisit one from last week because you know what, Mike Norvell, you are certainly a somebody who is going to be able to buy a whole lot of Tecovas work boots pretty soon with that buyout that you've got coming your way, joining the famous likes, a pretty prestigious name here, the Jimbo Fisher, Will Muschamp, Bobby Petrino, Scott Frost, Art Briles, and even Florida State's own Willie Taggart from a few years ago in the prestigious the summit of all of our dream job, right, guys, is to be the buyout fired football coach, Mike Norvell. I think you're well on your way there, and for that very reason, you should be feeling taller, feeling confident, walking taller. But I would not be setting up any Christmas decorations if I were you. But on to some people who may be sticking around a little bit longer than Mike Norvell is. We got some Player of the Weeks. Andrew, why don't you lead us off?
All right, well, I'm just kicking things off here with Fernando Mendoza, who is the QB for Cal. Cal has had some wild up and down parts to their seasons, lots of downs, especially in ACC play, but they got a little bit of a reprieve this week. Mendoza had a great 360-yard performance on the day with 2 touchdowns that he threw, and in one of those rare feats for a quarterback, he also caught a touchdown on a little trick play there. So props to Mendoza for being all around just a great player this week. That's Fernando Mendoza from Cal.
Andrew, I think the one stat you forgot to mention here in the spreadsheet is that he may be the first player in quarterback history to actually complete more than 100% of his passes, 27 of 26.
Jared, that was a typo, and so I very deftly walked right over it.
Because I was so impressed. I thought, man, Andrew pulled that off well.
I did well, and then Jared just had to rub my face in it rather than do his job as a QA before the show. Jared, who's your pick? And so let's find out what stat you got wrong.
Derek Morris, the kicker from Cal, has been picked on.
Whoa. Hold on. This is an ACC podcast, guys. What are you guys? What are we doing about talking about all these Cal players?
Oh, yeah.
Look,
we're about that.
Jared is on a redemption tour here. He when he says picked on, who has picked on this kicker, Jared? Who on this podcast has picked on this kicker?
Well, it wasn't me. It was someone with the same last name as me, though.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying he was very vocal about it. Yeah, but I'm not going to say his name.
What was it justified? I'm just asking.
I mean,
did it cost his team games?
The
this guy's about to get his first career game ball, and you guys are just crapping all over him.
I'm defending him. I've been defending him all season.
He made kicks of 33, 46, 19, 25, and 38 yards, 5 for 5, tied the single game Cal record. Derek Morris, enjoy your day.
You know, I bet the fans over there in Berkeley, California, would have liked if he would have made a few of those in other games.
Oh,
all right. Let's get back to the real ACC and the South's oldest rivalry. I don't know if anyone noticed. I hope no one did. North Carolina Tar Heels beat the living snot out of the Virginia Cavaliers in Charlottesville. It was a 41-14 victory. The game was not as close as the final score indicated, and a big part of that was the Tar Heels defense. They ended up in the backfield all day long, sacked Anthony Calandria and then later Tony Muskett 10 times on the day. A big part of that, Kaimon Rucker. He ended up with 8 tackles, 3.5 of them for losses, 3 sacks, and an interception to lead the way for a Tar Heels defense that was dominant. Got UNC back on the right track after a tough slide here, and put up a big victory and earned himself his first career virtual tailgate game ball.
All right, so for my game ball this week, I'm going to revisit in sort of a way our recipient of the Tacobas work boots, walking taller, feeling taller recipient this week, Mike Norvell. Well, they played a team that's been a bit of a surprise this season, at least to us, in how they performed and not really stumbled so far. They played the Miami Hurricanes last weekend, and in a game in which we thought that, or some of us thought that maybe Florida State would keep it a little bit closer, even though we thought they'd end up losing the game. Well, close was never in doubt in this game. I mean, from the get-go, this is a Miami team that really dominated this game, really took it to the Florida State Seminoles pretty much the same way that the Seminoles have been manhandled for most of their season, en route to, if there was any doubt, ensuring that they will not be going bowling this year. This drops them to 1-7. That Florida State, I mean, this game is just a disaster all around. This team is a mess. But let's call it what it is. This offense is terrible. I mean, the defense is not great. The offense that they have going on down there right now in Florida State is just horrendous. Cannot move the ball at all. And they get your butt beat, as Dabo would say, by the Miami Hurricanes. And one of the players that was the key contributor, that was the running back for the Miami Hurricanes, Damian Martinez, really had a field day against this Florida State defense that had played well for a lot of the season, even in losses, but he just ran all over them. Only 15 rushes for nearly 148 yards. That makes it out to just slightly less than a first down per rush, and added 2 touchdowns on the ground en route to this 36-14, really dismantling of the Florida State Seminoles in a game that, for a spread that big, was not even as close as the score says.
All right, well, we're going to move on now to the power rankings, which are brought to you by this special parody service announcement from the virtual tailgate. As we approach Halloween, this is a friendly reminder for all the kiddos to be safe and have a trusted guardian with you while trick-or-treating this year. Tips include to hold hands while crossing the street, use a flashlight when it gets dark outside, and to inspect each piece of candy for safeties and any concerns with allergies such as peanuts. Speaking of candy, for those that give out Twizzlers instead of real candy, I know who you are. And we're throwing hands. So don't you dare screw me when you Snickers in that bowl and you don't give it to me. I'm warning you, damn it. Give me real candy now. And you'll be glad you did.
This sounds like a man who's had a personal experience.
Trunk or treat was very rough with the Twizzler ratio.
Did you toss it back in their face? Did you say I'm not taking that shit?
I shut up. Especially at the church trunk or treat, that would have gone over real well.
A note for listeners at home. I was told to be careful with my language before the show started, because we needed to make sure that we kept things at a certain rating. Can you guess which one of the other people on the panel told me that? Anyhow, Jared, talk to us about the actual power rankings.
I mean, can we just hold on? Can we just admit that like Twizzlers are really just like rubber pipe cleaners? I mean, you can use them for basically the same thing.
I mean, honestly, during the COVID toilet paper shortage, I was using it for that. Anyway, not flushable. Anyway, number 5 in our power rankings is Louisville, 5-3, 3-2 in the conference. They had a very tough win on Friday night, 31-27 over Boston College. Number 4, SMU, 7-1 overall, 4-0 undefeated in the conference after that nail biter 28-27 overtime victory over the Duke Blue Devils. Number 3, we got the Pitt Panthers, 7-0, 3-0 in conference play, 41-13 drubbing over Syracuse at Pittsburgh on Thursday night. They are looking like one of the teams to beat, and that Pitt SMU matchup on Saturday night is going to be honestly the ACC game to watch this weekend. Number 2, the Hurricanes, 8-0, 4-0 in conference play. They just wall up the Seminoles 36-14. Just Florida State is beyond just not watchable at this point, I guess is the best way to put it. We'll talk more about that here in our bottom 3. Thank you. Yeah. We got to get that soundbite in here one day. Number 1, Clemson had a bye week. So 6-1, 5-0 in conference. They had a bye week. So did they get to enjoy some Gatorade?
Get some Gatorade, man. Enjoy your day.
There you go. Dabo did. I'm sure Dabo probably went to church like 10 times instead of his usual 8. Bottom 3, number 15, Wake Forest. They actually stay at their power ranking. They won over Stanford, though, 27-24. Speaking of Stanford, you know how we reward teams for having a tough loss against bottom dwellers? We move you up in the power rankings by 1 spot. The Stanford Cardinal moves up from the cellar, the basement, to just above the basement after their loss to Wake Forest. And last but not least, well, we talked about them with their loss to Miami. The Seminoles are back to the cellar dweller. They are ass. They suck. They stink. Rock, do your thing.
Now, Rock says they kept you at the bottom of the barrel because you absolutely suck.
Honorable mention, though, as someone noted here, was goes to Duke special teams. Their field goal at the end of regulation for the game winner was against SMU was blocked. That would have been a huge win for not only Duke football over a ranked opponent, but also for their ACC title chances. So, George?
He clambered up, looked in, and nearly fell off in surprise. Someone defecating.
Although, in my 2 cents, the defender made an unbelievable block, but David has stated the kicker should probably do some practice this week.
Nice. It was it's a tough day for the Blue Devils, but don't count them out quite yet. We're going to get there in just a moment. Before we do, did you know?
I'm the best player in the country. I'm humbly saying that, and I'm confident saying that.
Yeah. But not so fast, because I've got a question for you.
Oh,
Does Duke play football? Yes, sir. You damn right we play football. Yeah.
We're going to find out this weekend when the Blue Devils travel down to South Beach to take on the Miami Hurricanes. A big spread in this one. Miami, something like a 19.5-point favorite at home. It looks to me like all of us either like the Blue Devils or we like the money. Geoff, what's going to happen here?
Yeah, so this is a Miami team that we've talked about a lot on this season, and as we just played, we're starting to finally come around after doubting them for so much of the season. So that might lead into some of your picks, because we all know what happens when we all. Yeah, there we go. This is gonna be good, but Miami team that has shown the ability to put up some points. So you talked about Cam Ward, who I don't know, Andrew, you got that? How on call are we here?
I'm the best player in the country. I'm humbly saying that, and I'm confident saying that.
Yeah, so he's humbly saying that he's the best player in the country, but it could be true that he's the best player in the country. And this is a Miami team that has put up a lot of points on the season. However, that is a big spread. So I have actually, even though it scares me, because I think that this Duke team has a lot of question marks in it, they are also coming off a performance against another good offense in SMU last week, a game in which they held SMU's quarterback, who may not ever be confused with Cam Ward, but is certainly not a quarterback that is not a is not a quarterback that's certainly a slouch. And Kevin Jennings held him to under 50%, or just shy of just a little 50% completion percentage, only 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions on the day. Really not a terrible performance for him, but definitely his weakest performance that he's had for most of the season. So I think this is a Duke defense that may have a little bit to build off of with that performance against SMU as they head into this game against Cam Ward. I still find it to be really hard to see a path to victory for this Blue Devils team. And if they had really fallen flat against SMU, a game in which I thought SMU was going to cover the spread, in their game last week instead of a game that the Blue Devils were right there, but for a crazy play at the end of regulation, ended up losing in overtime. I probably would have said 19.5 sounds like a good number. Let's take the Hurricanes on this. That game, the resolve that they showed, that Manny Diaz has built with that team, and really picking up what Mike Elko had built in that program. I got a hunch that this is a game that I can see, a 13, 14 point spread. I don't know that it's going to be close, but 19.5. Blue Devils showed me a lot last week, so I've got the Blue Devils. If only for the fact that I think that they are not 3 touchdowns worse than the Miami Hurricanes. Even if it becomes a backdoor cover type of situation.
So this is very much a game it's strength on strength here. This is a Duke defense that ranks in the top 20 nationally. They've been pretty impressive, but they have not faced anything like Miami. I think Miami is still are they the highest scoring team in the country right now? Or one of them? I think they're second nationally in passing yards. I mean, the Hurricanes they are getting the job done on offense. It's hard to imagine Duke pulling the upset, and yet both of you clowns, Andrew and Jared, are predicting Duke to win. What's going on?
Well, but I actually do believe they'll win. I'm going to keep saying it. Miami's been bailed out a few times by the referees. That is just not an opinion. That's an actual fact. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to let that go and slide. They're a 2-loss team at a minimum. Honestly, maybe even a 3-loss team. And the fact is, Duke is not exactly going to be coming in here unprepared, down, mopey about their loss to SMU. Yes, it sucked. But the thing is, Duke can learn from it and take it down to Miami. They have played the Hurricanes tough at times. Let's go back to, the most recent one, Halloween night, 2015. The Hurricanes and Blue Devils played each other back up to Durham, and the thing is, Duke had that game won, and lo and behold, the ACC refs decided to say, hey, 8 laterals, have them forward, no biggie, it's still a touchdown, the game's over.
I think that one's that's going to factor into this contest, I have a feeling.
Yes, I understand. I'm just using it as a reference point. But the thing is, Malik Murphy has been very good lately. He was good against SMU. Did he throw the ball a little too much? Sure. But if they get their running game involved again, which was not a factor against the Mustangs, Star Thomas, the running back, they can control the ball, they can keep Cam Ward off the field, and they can keep the Hurricanes in check and make it sweat the game out. I really do think that Blue Devils have a legit chance, definitely a much better chance than the 9% that ESPN's given them, to win this football game. And the odds with the payout here for the money line are so absurd, at least with the lines we're using, which are currently a plus 800 for Duke for the straight up win. You have to at least take a chance on it if you're going to have a value bet. Small money for a big return. That's our only advice here. But in my opinion, I do like Duke in this football game, and I will take the Blue Devils.
Andrew, is this a shameless money grab for you, or do you actually believe the same as Jared that Duke has a chance?
I obviously, we said that Miami was going to be under their win total on the over-under for the preseason, so that just means that they need to lose at home to Duke, and then on the road at Georgia Tech, and then at home against Wake Forest, and then on the road at Syracuse to close out the season, and we'll all be right. So I just going to go with Duke to win this one, to kick off that string of monumental losses to mediocre or absolutely terrible teams that Miami is obviously going to do.
I got to tell you, man, I'm looking at the schedule, and I'm having a harder and harder time finding losses for the Hurricanes.
Legitimately, this is the game that I think that they could lose in the rest of their season. And I don't really know, I think that the Duke defense is a really good thing to point to as a reason for it. I think that the 3 incredibly close games that they had before getting Florida State, which was always going to be a laugher, really does show that this Miami team may not be actually in the quite the untouchable powerhouse that we would think they are. I think they also happen to fall into perhaps the kindest schedule that that a Miami team could have wanted this year, not realizing that Florida State was going to be quite so bad. But they've got no Clemson, no Pitt to have to deal with. So it definitely puts them in an easier path to the championship game. So I think this is the game that they have to watch out for. That also means they're going to be up for it, that they're going to be ready to go and not get caught sleeping because they've got a bigger opponent on the horizon. But if it's going to happen, it's going to be here. So I'm going to put my money on the one place where if it's going to happen,
listen,
it might.
Manny Diaz wants revenge, and he's going to go get it. All right, he got a can from the U. He's going to go down to the U, kick their can, and go ahead and get that W.
So obviously, David, because you're ragging on all of us so much, you took Miami to cover, right?
Well, about that, I also am taking Duke on the money line. It is a pure cash grab for me. Jared kind of said it well. There's low risk, high reward here on dropping a little bit of dime on the Blue Devils. I don't really think they're going to win this game. I do actually think they're going to cover, though. I would take them and the points. I think one of you said earlier that we've witnessed with these close victories for Miami that they're a team that actually is not blowing out the better of their competition. And Duke, sounds strange to say, but this is a good football team. Coach Cutt was right. They do play football. They've got some outstanding athletes. I think Duke keeps it close and loses the game there. But for the purposes of our picks and this imaginary money we're playing with, give me Duke to win outright. All right, trivia time, guys. Without looking it up, who can remember the new name of the Carrier Dome?
It's like the
something wireless.
Dome? The jammed wireless.
All right, you guys put together. You've almost got it. It's the JMA Wireless Dome up in Syracuse, New York, where the Virginia Tech Hokies are coming to town. Hokies come in as 3.5-point road favorites in this one, and our picks are all over the place. And a matter of fact, I think between the four of us, we picked everything there is to pick. Andrew, you look like you know what you're talking about.
I mean, Tech has looked better as the season has gone on. To me, in most meaningful ways. Also, I was making darn sure that I didn't pick the same thing as Jared. Jared talked me into some crazy statistic about the visiting team with the Georgia Tech versus Virginia Tech over the past number of years, whatever, last time. I was just not going for it. So I'm saying Tech's going to win. If Tech's going to win, I think it's pretty easy for me to say that they're going to win by more than a field goal. So I'll take them on the spread.
Yeah, I like the Hokies in this one too. Though it's strange to say, I can imagine them winning the game by a field goal or so. So I'm taking Virginia Tech on the money line. They're playing really good football. They're winners of 3 straight. They responded to that heartbreaking loss against the U as well as a team possibly could have. And now if you kind of look back on the season that the Hokies have had, there are a couple wrong bounces away from a really special campaign. I think it's impressive what Brent Pry's done. It's impressive the way their defense has really came to light these last few weeks. I think that continues to carry them in this one. They win the game. I'm taking them just on the money line, but they get the victory. Phyllis, tell us why we're wrong.
So, David, I think the one thing you mentioned is the defense. The defense did a fantastic job against Georgia Tech. In fact, you could argue Georgia Tech outplayed the Hokies for most of that football game, but outside, with exception of the red zone, Georgia Tech just struggled where the defense clamped down and was able to keep that game.
Bend but don't break.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the Hokies' offense was essentially mostly not effective against Georgia Tech, but once they got inside the red zone for their 3 trips, the Hokies did get touchdowns. They're going to have to do that against Syracuse. I know Syracuse got their ass kicked by Pitt, and they're going to be prepared. This has always been, for the Hokies, a house of horrors every time they had to go up and play that.
What?
Horrors, and whores, depending on who's the coach.
Oh, just keep going, buddy.
Yeah. Anyway, it's been a nightmare. The last time Virginia Tech has won up there at Syracuse, Michael Vick was the quarterback in 2000. That's how long it's been. They have struggled. They will continue to struggle. Even teams that are good have struggled, unless you're Stanford. Stanford somehow found a way to win. But it just, as a Hokie fan, as an alum, I just get hesitant when they have to go up there. Kyle McCord is bound to have a bounce back game. Right now, at this time of this recording, the star running back for the Hokies, Bayshaw Tuden, does not look like he's going to play. He looks like he will not make it. His ankle's too banged up after the game against Georgia Tech. They're going to go to the backup running back. I think that's going to be a factor. I think Kyron Drones is going to make a bad mistake, and it's just going to, unfortunately, not go the Hokies' way. I have Syracuse in the money line. I just think they get the bounce back that they need, and, it is what it is at the end of the day. It's just a tough place to go up there to Syracuse.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have similar thoughts to what Jared's got, although I'm giving myself a little more of a hedge in this, if not for trading off a little bit of the potential payoff. I've got Syracuse plus the whatever it is, the plus 3.5 half points. I could see Virginia Tech winning this game. I also have a hard time thinking it's going to be a very big spread in this game, and even though the Hokies have been playing good ball right now, and Syracuse is obviously coming off that big disaster of a game on the Friday night or Thursday night against Pitt last week, I think that the at least I hope, if I'm going with this, the performance of McCord in that should be treated as the outlier. That is not the way that Syracuse offense has been playing all season. The top passing offense, or I don't know if they're top in the conference, but pretty close to it. I know Cam Ward's up there, but certainly one of the top passing teams in the conference. And the other thing that doesn't get a lot of attention, because really the defense from a point standpoint has not been shut down by any stretch, but Virginia Tech, and Jared, you just kind of hit on it, what I didn't even realize he was banged up. Their offense runs through the running game. I mean, Kyron Drones and the passing game really has not clicked very much this season. Really had a hard time getting going. You look at that Syracuse run game; they aren't giving up a lot of yards on the ground, and I'm a bit concerned that, especially if they've got a banged up running back, that this is a Hokie team that's gonna have some difficulty moving the ball against Syracuse, even though even though the defense has given up some points. Even the game against Pitt, really the spread in that game was based on the terrible performance, which you hope is a one-off performance by the offense. The 3 pick sixes, putting Pitt in a situation where they had short fields over and over again. I think they had something that was like 215 yards of total offense in that 41 points that they put up. So it was not the offense that cost them that game. It was all the mistakes on the offensive side of the ball for Syracuse. So I've got a sneaky suspicion here that Syracuse is not nearly as bad as they should against Pitt. Virginia Tech has been playing well, but has some holes, and I just think it's going to be a tough matchup. So I'm giving myself a little bit of a hedge for the Hokies to pull out the victory, but I think it's going to be a close one.
All right, fellas. With both of those matchups, the Duke-Miami game, Virginia Tech-Syracuse, are both early in the day. Those are both noon kickoffs. Later on, in prime time, we've got a couple more really, really exciting matchups. One of those is the Louisville Cardinals traveling down to Death Valley, taking on the Clemson Tigers. This is Clemson's biggest matchup here, their biggest test since that opening weekend thumping at the hands of Georgia. It's a Tigers team that has been really, really hot of late, have really rounded into form quite nicely. A Louisville team that has gotten back on track after struggling a bit there in the middle of the campaign. Clemson opens at 9.5 point favorites, and it looks like most of us like them. Geoff, you do not. Make the case for the Cardinals to cover.
Oh yeah, so I have a pretty clean, straightforward case here for them to cover, because as far as I can tell, Louisville has been on a bit of a cold streak recently. The last 5 games, 2 wins, 3 losses. However, there is a consistency in the 3 losses. And that number is 7. Miami, lost by 7. SMU, lost by 7. Notre Dame, lost by 7. All good teams, all top 25 ranked teams that are on the caliber of the Clemson Tigers. This is, I joke, I'm not saying that they're going to only lose by 7, but I do believe that even in these losses, the fact that Louisville has kind of come back to earth from a record standpoint, that this is still a Louisville team that can keep games close. And I'm looking at the spread coming into this game here that the 9.5. Once again, this feels very much like the Syracuse Virginia Tech game to me. Game in which I certainly believe that Clemson, if you were to make me a pick just a straight up winner, is probably the better team. But Louisville, I believe, is a step above some of the teams that that Clemson has been blowing out in their games. I mean, you look at some of their scores. In some of their games, UVA only beat them by 17. FSU only beat them by 16. Those two teams certainly are a few notches below what I believe this Louisville team is. So for that reason, just the overall offensive power of the Cardinals, I think that Clemson probably comes out with the victory, but I'm not willing to go with that 9.5 point spread for the margin of victory, given that Louisville has been keeping these games close against top 25 teams.
It's interesting with Louisville because they almost seem like a team that where their play is dictated by the opponent. If you take a look at their results on the season, they have played very, very competitive football with some really good teams in Notre Dame, in Miami, and SMU. Come up just short, but tight losses, 7 points, as Geoff said. If you look at some of their other matchups, they have struggled and had to come back for victories over teams like Virginia and Boston College. It's almost like the Cardinals played down to the competition. Certainly nothing to play down to in this one. And so it's not crazy to imagine, as Geoff has laid out for us, that they rise to the occasion and come to play against Clemson. However, I would argue that this Clemson team, they're just different right now, and they're playing like it. Jared, Andrew, tell me why you are giving the points and still taking the Tigers.
Well, even if I'm going to take Geoff's argument, which is a pretty good one about how well Louisville might play against Clemson, I'm still willing to give Clemson the spread just on that backdoor cover. That right at the end they kick a field goal and make it just a little bit bigger. But I really don't even think that Clemson's going to need that. Clemson's not been a team to let teams linger around this year. Definitely looking like they took that loss to Georgia personally after the first week and really wanted to make sure that there was no doubt that they were the best team in the ACC with some pretty strong, multi-touchdown victories over all of the teams that they've got that they faced recently. So I would definitely give them the edge, even though Louisville has had the aptitude to play to the competition. I think if we look at Louisville only beat UVA by 4 points. Meanwhile, Clemson, had a 15-point spread on that just to use the most recent common opponent that I can find there. I really do think that it's very likely that Clemson just grabs hold of this game and doesn't let go, as they've done with every other game this season.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's been close. That's exactly right. Jared, anything to add here?
I think you kind of summed it up pretty well there, Andrew. The one thing is Tyler Shaw has to play better. He did not play a great game for a good part of that Boston College matchup on Friday. Thank you. Shoo. Anyway, and the one player that did play pretty well on Friday night would have to be Ja'Cory Brooks. He was he's been a handful all season for defenses. He just gets the ball and pretty much doesn't give it back to anybody. Kate Klubuk, of course, the quarterback for Clemson. He's always the X factor for the Klubnik. I'm sorry. Klubnik. Thank you. I am just falling apart here.
We got to start recording these episodes earlier in the day or something.
We really do. I mean,
or before Jared starts drinking. Oh wait,
I wasn't going to say it.
I don't drink during the show. I drink after the show to celebrate that I get off the phone with you bozos. Anyway, what was I say? Yeah. Anyway,
so much hate.
Yeah, we need a PSA about that.
I did one. I did a PSA on the hate.
Look. My kids are going through like a "Don't Be a Bully" segment at school this week. Okay, Jerry. So Don't be a bully, okay?
They don't give out
Jared, here's your
Twizzlers.
homework. We need you to record a 34-minute infomercial
I know.
anti-bullying, please.
With 0 swear words.
Oh, kiss my. How about I just kiss my grits?
Yeah.
Yeah. Louisville's a good. Louisville's had a tough schedule. Clemson's a better team. Louisville gets screwed again. The end. Next game.
All right, that brings us to what I think we're in agreement is really the ACC game of the week. Just as we all predicted a few years ago, it'll be the Pitt Panthers traveling down to Dallas to take on the Mustangs of SMU. These are two teams sitting right at the top of the ACC standings. Pittsburgh undefeated on the campaign. SMU still yet to lose a game in conference play. This line opens with a pretty big spread. SMU favored by 6 in the hook. Once again, we are all over the place on this. I don't know who wants to start the discussion here. Jump in, plead your case. Maybe you can persuade the rest of us.
I'm going.
I mean, I guess I guess the question is, does anybody feel good about their pick? Since we're all over the place,
I feel good enough to pick SMU on the money line. This is like, if we're just looking at like home field advantage, it's a longer travel for Pitt than most of what they've been used to in the ACC, although Pitt has been used to longer travel than than a lot of our other ACC teams, but nonetheless, like, it just kind of taking it without really digging too far into it. Moneyline pick is kind of a lazy, easy pick anyway. And so I just say, like, yeah, they're probably going to win. I have no idea. It could be 5 points. It could be 50 points as the difference. Who knows? But I feel like home teams probably got, some meaningful advantage here.
All right. So go one vote home field advantage.
I mean, I guess for mine, I guess to keep with the SMU theme here, I guess the fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, or whatever that saying goes. But I'm gonna.
It's a saying from Texas, I heard.
Yeah, that's right. I'm gonna hesitantly go with SMU on this touchdown spread. This one makes me nervous. I'll tell you all, this one makes me nervous. But I think that Pittsburgh's secondary is clearly vulnerable. Even though they played the really good game, the 5 interceptions, the 3 pick sixes last week against Syracuse. I think that secondary is still vulnerable. Still getting up a lot of yards, a lot of bend don't break there. I think they've only given up 2 TDs, but they're one of the worst in conference secondaries that in the ACC right now. So I think there's definitely a risk going on there. On the other side, Eli Holstein, who we had talked a lot about as the transfer quarterback into Pittsburgh, has really cooled off a lot since they got into conference play. A little bit concerned that he's not playing at the level that he's been, that he kind of started off the season at. So I'm really, if for nothing else, really probably my two concerns and why I settled on SMU to at least be able to take that touchdown spread is that I'm not sure that Pittsburgh's offense, as I talked about in the couple of games ago, is that 41 points was not on their offense. That was on the defense, and that was on a lot of mistakes by the Orange. I just have a doubt that they can replicate that against SMU in this game. That offense really did nothing against Syracuse, and I'm worried that this is a Pitt team that, despite being undefeated, has kind of been, I don't want to say getting lucky, but has basically been riding some favorable favorable balls falling their way in some of these games, and that this SMU game is a bad matchup for them, especially on the secondary side, and for that reason, I like what Pat Narduzzi's been doing, but I'm gonna stick with the Mustangs at least one more week. They've been covering the spread for the most part, and putting up a lot of points this season.
So,
one thing that, go ahead.
I was about to say, the one thing I guess I'll make my pick real quick is that I just see a AP article here that says Holstein may not play. Is unsure. Unsure due to an injury in the fourth quarter against Syracuse. That's one problem. The other thing is that, as someone pointed out, I think Pitt's defense and special teams scored more points than their offense last game, which is impressive and also concerning.
I feel like somebody was talking about this.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. And then last but not least, for SMU, they had to play better football. Like, yes, they beat Duke, but man, their quarterback play got sloppy in that game. You look at it. Kevin Jennings really has got to cut down on the turnovers. He had 3 picks in the last game. If he does that against Pitt, at least one of those will be for a touchdown probably. Pitt's defense is what's carrying them right now this season. It's not the offense, and it sure as hell won't be the offense if their quarterback is out with the injury. That's why I'm really, really hesitant. And I think I'm going to switch. I initially picked Pitt in the spread. I'm going to go at least SMU in the spread at this point. I think there's a lot stacking up here. As Andrew mentioned, it is down in Dallas. I think SMU will definitely have the advantage. I think the crowd will be amped up down there too. It's not really Halloween weekend anymore. That was last weekend. I kind of noticed that the crowds were a little sparse at Duke during the Saturday night special, but I think that'd be a little different down in football star of Dallas. So I'm switching mine from Pitt to SMU and the spread.
Yeah. You guys made some good, compelling points. And in fact, you've almost talked me out of my pick also. It certainly is the case that SMU, though they struggled to get the victory over Duke, coming back home and facing a Pitt squad that has maybe more questions than answers right now, may not look great for the Panthers. But I'm going to stick with my pick of Pitt, and it's really just with this logic. When I've got a game that I cannot predict what's going to happen, give me the points. And so I think 6.5 that's a big spread. A lot can happen, and Pitt still cover that spread, and that's what I think is going to happen in this one. It'll be fun. This is a good matchup.
All right, well, that means it's time to move us into the quickfire bets here. Not many games this week, and since we covered 4, it kind of limits the scope of what we can pick. Jared, I know that you are very excited to have gotten your quickfire bet in first, so I will let you have first crack at telling us about it. Of course, he's on mute now. Geoff, you can tell us about the same bet that Jared won't tell us about.
Wait. You guys hear me now? I must. I think I'm.
Welcome back, Jared.
Yeah, sorry, I muted myself.
Welcome back.
Yes, I muted myself for no reason. Anyway, you mentioned first crack at it. I love crack. Thank you so much. So the first game here is at noon. NC State, Stanford. Stanford is traveling from the West Coast to the East. Stanford's in California. FYI, geography majors. Noon kickoff, 9 a.m. body clock time for Stanford. That's an early kickoff. That does not bode well for most West Coast teams. Stanford is not a good team. NC State's just a slightly better team. 9 in the hook. I'll take the Wolfpack to at least take those points and easily cover.
Yeah, I think Jared kind of hit on the logistical challenges that Stanford certainly is going up against. But I also think there's really a lot of bad things for the Cardinal in this matchup, mainly being the performance that CJ Bailey has put on the last few weeks as they've gotten into conference play, really putting up a lot of points or a lot of yards, putting up some touchdowns. Really has quietly, because the Wolfpack haven't had a great season, and because there's been so many good quarterbacks in the ACC thus far, really flying a little bit under the radar. But he's quietly really hit his stride the last few weeks, and this is a Stanford secondary coming in that has given up in its conference play the most touchdowns in the ACC thus far. 14 touchdowns through the air that they've given up in conference play, bottom 5 in the conference in secondary yards per game given up. So I think this is just a bad matchup where a Stanford offense that isn't very potent to begin with is going to have to put up a lot of points to keep up with what I think is going to be an NC State team that I think is probably going to feast on that secondary.
All right,
guys, I have a feeling that Andrew is not going to like those picks.
I'm gonna have to start reining you guys in like 5 minutes and then a clown horn or something like that. This is quick fire bets. You're both wrong. Stanford's gonna cover. David, what's your pick?
And in my defense, I was so like amped up because we had 4 games this week. I was just in the zone.
And also that I love crack. So
in Geoff's defense, there is no defense. And Andrew, I apologize.
You know, David, you were my 3rd favorite person on this show.
Well, listen, I may move up in your estimation. Give me just a moment here. I have no defense for this, Andrew. You can find me for it later if you must, but I've got to set the record straight on one thing. When we began these quickfire bets, Jared uttered the following phrase: "I muted myself for no reason," quote unquote. I just want to clarify, Jared. There is always a good reason for you to mute yourself. Give me the Tar Heel. Imagine my surprise also when we get to this quickfire bet section, which I think is meant to
this goes on forever.
All the games in the ACC, a chance to talk about different games we're not mentioning, and all 3 of you clowns jump into the same one. What I say to all 3 of you is grow a spine. Talk about the game down in Tallahassee where the Tar Heels are going to cover a 2.5-point spread and get the win.
Yes, because those Florida State fans are talking about this game. They have been looking forward to it since I don't know.
And that's it for the virtual tailgate. You can send your questions or comments to virtualtailgate@mediabullcrap.com.
Always remember these 3 rules. Never get less than 12 hours sleep.
Never play cards with a guy who has the same first name as the city.
And never get involved with a woman with a tattoo of a dagger on her body.
Stick to that, and everything else is cream cheese.
You can say
that's ball game. No, I'm following the script. I'm following the script here. Come on.
Some Gatorade, man. Enjoy your day.
Thanks, Coach.